Welcome to JGTCR. I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Ford Mustang Boss 429. Let's get into it. There's just something about these old Mustangs that newer models fail to replicate. These are solid, stable vehicles that are easy to manage, drive, and place on circuit. The handling is simple yet effective. This Mustang does what it's told, when it's told, and it asks no questions. The steering can feel a touch heavy, but it's sharp and precise enough to maneuver considerably well. The power is old school muscle, plenty of torque and push power, but it's not overwhelming. The power delivery is quite mild, and while wheel spin does occur, it's not detrimental to the vehicle's stability or our driving experience. The brakes work well, although they do seem a touch spongy. However, this is expected from older vehicles. Let's collect our time. 8 minutes, 10.7 seconds. And now, the race tune. This Mustang hits us like blunt force trauma. It's an incredibly raw drive out of this old school thumping V8. The handling has some weight to it and the tail does like to spin up, but fortunately it is quite manageable and somewhat easy to drive once we get used to it. The steering is firm and stable, but it does have a hefty feel to it. This is, however, a good thing as it keeps the front ends well planted. The power is all brute force. It can seem lazy and it drones on as it revs out, but it gets us moving extremely quickly. The power delivery is very aggressive in the top end of the first 3 gears and mildly aggressive in the last 2. Our gear ratio adjustment was only a mild tweak, but it brought the whole thing into line. The brakes are solid and stable, however, it does take some time to pull up due to the extra weights we carry. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes, 24.3 seconds. And now, the drift tune. This Mustang is old school grumpy lumpy muscle drift, and we need to treat it as such. The handling is good for the most part, but has wheel speed issues if we try to shake and bake while drifting. The steering is fairly solid and sharp and precise enough to hold a decent drift, but it can get understeery at high RPM. The power comes on very strong right the way through the rev range and has a good bit of bottom end torque to see us through that low RPM drift. The power is only mildly aggressive, but it can get more aggressive at the top end of the revs, which is where our trouble lies, so keep it chilled and all is well. This Ford Mustang can be driven somewhat aggressively and heavy-handedly, but it definitely prefers being feathered and using more of a precision-style drift. And now it's time for an engine swap. This Mustang takes the engine swap like a champ. It's not great in factory trim, but it certainly does well. The handling is a bit like the tail is on ice. It lights up everywhere, but the weight keeps it grounded. The steering works decently, but it can be twitchy if we are too enthusiastic on inputs. The power is attentive and crisp, but it's full of torque, especially in the top end of the revs. This makes it hard to maintain traction without heaps of throttle modulation and feathering. Once again, the brakes are spongy but slow us down well enough. Let's collect our time. "7 minutes, 40.1 seconds. And now the race tune. The secret sauce for tuning these Mustangs is adjusting the gear ratios. Fords in general on GT7 seem to have very poor gear ratio settings. The handling is fairly tight and responds well to our inputs. Any slides that occur are manageable and there isn't much erratic behavior at all. The steering is attentive and sharp, however, the tail can struggle to keep up at times. The power is extremely crisp and ever at the ready to perform. It revs well through the gears and is quite grounded. The power delivery has been thwarted by the tune and in particular the gear ratio settings. While there is still some degree of aggressiveness and wheel spin, it is mild and minimal, giving us amazing control even in the worst conditions. The brakes are once again solid and stable, but slowing down is still a bit of a chore that takes longer than anticipated due to the weight. Let's collect our time. 6 minutes, 23.1 seconds. And now the drift tune. The engine swap has given us a more attentive engine, and that also translates to the feeling we get while drifting. The handling has more of a nimble feel to it, but it retains the stability of the weight we carry. The steering is sharp and crisp, making this old school chassis have a much more modern feel. The power is less than the factory engine, but provides a lighter chassis overall and a more responsive throttle. The power delivery is a bit more aggressive, but again, it is not overwhelming. Although it still has the potential to whip around on us if we are not vigilant on inputs, and it can lock the front wheels when wheel spin gets excessive. The Ford Mustang Boss 429 with the engine swap is a far more responsive vehicle. This is brilliant for those that want the classic old school chassis with a modern feel. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!